Hello, everybody. How's it going? Oh, I see Carla's here. How you doing, Carla? Welcome to a very, very, very small informal stream featuring just myself and Mike.
Hello. This was idea that he had just a couple days ago, but I thought it sounded cool, a little bit of a different pace from what we normally do, so yeah, what the heck.
Yep, so it's, as you've noticed, I'm sure by now, it's titled Retro-Inactive.
That was my title, I claim full credit of it.
Yeah, you earned it on this one.
Yay. I better have. Dagnabbit.
Con, darn it. Alright. So, who's here tonight? We got Snarb, we got Carla, we got Cutest Meows. Is that who I think it is?
Yes! Hoi, how's it going?
Yep. So, welcome everybody. And, yeah, so what is Retro-Inactive, basically? Well, it's kind of how we've both fallen out of collecting retro games. That's to put it bluntly. But there's obviously a lot more involved than that. But
yeah, it's like, I want to jump right to the top and, mention a reason, but Rob has encouraged me to not dwell on that so much because it's boring and just kind of overstated to mention, the main reason why most people probably stopped retro collecting, so
it's not to
I'll
say,
only go there if he wants me to.
well, it's not to say we're not going to touch on it.
Yeah.
Now, Star poses an interesting question. Do buying digital collections count as collecting?
Well, by now, several of them, I think, do qualify as being retro, like good old, like all the Namco museums and Konami arcade classics and, all the Atari and Williams compilations that were released in the 90s. Those now technically count as retro, so they're, double retro, man.
Yeah. Hey, Han. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. What up?
So, perhaps to go ahead and kind of give you a little background here. The 90s was an interesting time to be collecting games. You could usually...
It was time for clacks.
That too.
I had to fucking do that at some point. But, yeah, go on.
Well, at the time, you could get stuff super cheap and it was plentiful. You could hit up any random pawn shop or game store and they would have, Atari games stacked to the ceiling covered with dust, NES games going for $3, even the ones that turned out to be really pricey later on. Genesis games, boxed, unboxed, Super NES, you name it. The only thing that still cost was what was currently out at the time. But I remember going into GameStop back then and, taking advantage of some of the deals they had where you could get, you buy 2 games, get 2 free, stuff like that. So, and that was a great time. It was also a very uncharted time, too, because you're always discovering something that you never got to play back in the day. Sometimes that was good, sometimes that was bad. Looking at you, Ikari Warriors.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm not sure if I talked about the video and game rental store by the name of Corner Video that was only just a few minutes drive away from me back then, where they got rid of their NES stock, and my brother took much advantage of that to build what would eventually become but chiefly my NES collection. I guess, it was a real crapshoot. We got some real quality stuff from there, like Contra and Castlevania 3, and at least 2 Mega Man games, but, on this flip side, yes, we did always own Ikari Warriors, and, I kept trying to play the game, finding it inscrutable, but wondering if I could ever, fairly beat the first stage. No, I did not. I had to use a Game Genie on it, and I don't know why I even bothered with that. That felt like a waste of time also, so... yeah, the caveat with retro collecting, back then is that there wasn't as much of an internet, even if an internet at all, to, get a good grasp on what you should have collected. You really only had game magazines and word of mouth from people you may or may not have known then to determine what was really worth grabbing.
Yeah, there was some really rudimentary fan sites back in the late 90s. Some of the biggest ones got their starts back then. Look at the Castlevania Dungeon.
Of course, yes.
Look at the OPCFG.
You would, wouldn't you?
Hey, 1998. It counts.
It does.
So, but, Snarb brings up a good point here. Even when the internet began to build up steam, you could still snag good deals on eBay. This is so true.
Yeah, shit. When did eBay start anyway? It's just like an institution of all our lives now, or some people's lives anyway. But
I've been on it since 2000, I think. So, and of course, the clearance sales and stuff that was going out. I mean, when I got my Dreamcast in, I think it was 2000, I cleaned up on Dreamcast games. The
good deal.
Major game stores were dumping them. So, Cannon Spike was one I got. Shenmue.
Very good.
God, I even took some of the crappy sports games I got and traded them in for good stuff, like what's that one? Gunbird 2.
Ah, yes, good old Psycho.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of these retro game places that were around, usually like a lot of the good ones I found in flea markets. And they would just have so much stuff in there, and of course with, like you mentioned, the video rental stores liquidating some of their stock.
Yeah.
If you happen to be lucky enough to find a rental store that was actually going out of business, they would liquidate everything. I had one of those, so that was
certainly bittersweet when that happens. But
oh, definitely.
At least you made out well from that. I wonder if video game rentals would make a good roundtable, but I feel like we might have touched upon that at some point already.
Well, we did, but it was on another channel, on another platform entirely. Right, Snarb?
That's correct. Oh, yes. So if you wanted it. But, sorry, I'm getting my eyes off the prize a bit.
Yeah, we'll worry about that later. But, places like that, where else are you going to get a complete in box copy of Tengen's Tetris for $6?
Holy fuck! Bastard! God damn it! I can't help but be a little bit envious of that, sir.
I actually turned around, took it down to one of the places in the flea market, and traded it in for almost $100 worth of credit. And I walked out of there with a box full of stuff. And it was just really, and there were NES, Super NES, Genesis, TurboGrafx, even PS1.
Rad.
It was a good day.
Very good.
And of course, Snarb saying if we ever want to do a round table. Oh, yeah, the guy who owns a Virtual Boy.
Yeah, I misplaced it for what it's worth. That probably makes things worse, actually. So, I'll root around for it later. I know I lost the AC adapter to it at some point. I could say that at least. So,
it shouldn't be hard to replace.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, I noticed one thing that you had these vast unexplored areas. Because if you only lived in one place for the longest time, it wasn't like you were going to, say, Europe or Japan. And starting around 94 was when I started encountering imports outside of the occasional mention in video game magazines. That would be when the Video Game Warehouse opened up out in Orange City, Florida. I remember walking in there the first time and seeing hanging from the ceiling all these little boxes. And I'm walking around getting a good look at them and realized they're Famicom boxes. And that was almost completely uncharted territory at the time.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Wasn't this where you just asked the guy, hey, could I have these? And he was like, wait, seriously?
Exactly.
Yeah, yep.
He's like,
yep.
You mean you actually want to buy one? It's like, yeah, and he pulls out this huge box of Famicom games, dirt cheap. I didn't have a lot of money, but I walked out with two of them, so.
Was the one Gradius 2? I might be wrong here.
Oh, Gradius 2 was one. That's what got my attention, what made me ask.
Excellent.
The other one was Holy Diver.
You've been down too long in the Midnight Sea. That game is really fucking hard.
You know how much they ran me both combined? Plus an adapter to play them on my NES?
Like $12, $15 around thereabouts.
You're close, 20.
Damn.
Complete
Excellent.
in-box with manual. I see Rex is here.
Hey, Rex.
Yeah. Welcome in. Anyway. So, around the time the internet started to get really big, there was still a lot of uncharted territory out there for quite a few of us, that myself included. I know about the time I got divorced, I started buying up bulk lots of Famicom games.
Right.
And it was like completely uncharted. Like, I was looking at games like I've never heard or even seen this game before. What the hell is this? Sometimes it was basically incomprehensible because it was like a quiz game or something like that.
Oh, like anytime I come across like a Japanese game that I haven't heard of before, but then I inevitably get to a name entry menu for all Japanese characters, I'm like, god damn it, god, why, god, the fate has not been with me today, but I'm sure you've had similar experiences.
Oh, I did. Plus, there were a few sports games that got mixed in as well, which I had no interest in. And there was one that actually got released over here as it was like American All-Pro Basketball or something like that. And I had the Japanese version. It's like, I'm no fan of basketball, but this isn't good.
So, not much chance of a sports game stream at any point soon, I'm sure.
No, there are some good sports games to talk about. That's just not one of them.
Yeah, certainly. Sports games were good all the way up to the 6th generation. Then, by the 7th, which I'm so fond of shitting on, they just became really homogenized. And well, that's another subject for another time, whatever the case.
Rex, you bought a box Super Famicom. Very nice.
Very nice. Yes.
So, yeah, if we do sports games, we'll have to talk about, like, the heyday of Konami.
Oh, yeah. Blades of Steel, Double Dribble, Track and Field 2, fucking Base Wars, the only installment in the stillborn Cyber Stadium franchise.
Hey, even Track and Field 1's worth talking about.
It is, yes. I really like that one.
Mm-hmm. Did you know in Japan it actually comes with a controller, a special controller, and it's separated into 2 distinct games?
Oh, yeah, that I remember. That's why, like, the second half of games in the US release actually had music to them.
Mm-hmm.
That was different from the first half.
Omega.
Hey, Ace.
How's it going? Oh, glad you could drop by.
Yeah. Good to have you.
So, but yeah, at this time I was starting to discover all this stuff. And that also went for like Super Famicom, Mega Drive, PC Engine. So
it has indeed been a while. Higher draft to this idea that I like, and I keep interrupting him while he's trying to talk about the cool stuff he collected.
But yeah, here's the thing. I was even still collecting as recently as 2016. But
I see.
Then it was just like, I've been there and I've done that. I pretty much know everything about the English friendly Famicom library at this point. I was still discovering some stuff for the Mega Drive and the Super Famicom and the PC Engine, but eventually just reached the point where it's like, why am I still collecting? I have everything I want. But I keep buying other stuff, and it's just, well, some of it's good, some of it isn't. Luckily, it's cheap. And then that got blown out of the water.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that everything's super expensive these days that's retro, because it's not. You can still get some pretty good deals. I see Sharon's here.
Hey, Sharon. What up?
Yeah, but, and this, like I said, we were going to touch on this, definitely. But, especially after 2020, it just seems like the prices for a lot of games has just spiked through the roof. Even games that by rights shouldn't be that expensive.
COVID likely fucked with it to an extent.
Yeah. And it's like, shooter fan like I am, it's just difficult to get a decent shooter at a good price nowadays.
Yeah.
You still get some, don't get me wrong. And, of course, the crap doesn't go for much. It's when the crap starts going for a lot is when I really started to question things, though.
Yeah, like I said before the stream, some maniacs would actually pay like $300 for a complete in-box copy of the fantastic NES game Back to the Future Part 2 and 3. And I'm like, that is just fucking madness. That's when you realize that, like, you're basically curled up on the floor, shivering for your next fix of Black Tar or China White or whatever the fuck. It's nonsense. It's way too far.
Now, I don't want to call out every collector that's out there or anything like that because, there are some people, they know what they collect, like Omega, for example. He collects a Famicom Disk System.
Hey, good stuff.
Yeah. But I have seen people who just collect everything just because it's there. It's like that's not a good reason to collect. What are you doing?
That actually reminds me of this ironic watch party that I had for a so-called documentary in another Discord server by the name of Nintendo Quest. Not sure if you've heard of that one.
Actually, I am familiar with it.
What have you heard about it?
Well, I've heard a lot about it. I know the guy who did it.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing one about the N64 right now.
Oh, cool.
So, that was... I understand why they did what they did. It was like a challenge, See if you get the entire NES library without resorting to the internet and just by traveling around.
Yeah.
So... Now...
Well, there's something to be said about devotion. That's just much farther than I'm willing to go.
Yeah, I understand there are some people out there who want to collect, say, like an entire set of games for X system or whatnot, but, Rex has a point there. The majority of the games suck.
Sturgeon's Law and whatnot. It's like, for as much as I value the NES still as my de facto favorite game console ever, just because some of my favorite games ever are on it, really plumbing into its library, really for like every Vice Project Doom, there's like 10...
The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkles, which we just recently covered on Dyer and Betty.
That you did. You died.
Yeah, that wasn't hard or anything. Dial of time in that damn game.
What a piece of shit, my god.
Also, hey Han, I see you, your last good finds were Star Wars and Master of Darkness for the Master System.
Ooh, love that game.
I actually had those both. Back around 2015, 2016, I was actually exchanging games with a guy I know in Scotland.
Cool.
And I was basically like, just get me Master System games, because half the ones you guys got, we didn't get over here. And he, in turn, wanted some North American exclusives, so yeah, it was a good trade. Also, get this. He actually sent me a game and included with it, it was a candy bar.
Huh.
It was really good, too. I mean, I can't think of what it was called for the life of me, but it was good stuff.
Hey, let me know if you remember that.
Yeah, it was.
I'm curious.
It was definitely European in origin. I don't believe I've ever seen one for sale over here.
I've been to a few like higher end grocery stores that tend to have like a foreign section that has, like Milka bars and Jaffa cakes and what have you.
I was at one of those just on Friday.
Excellent.
In fact, I brought home a bag of Taverner's wine gums for myself.
Nice.
and one for Betty. And one for Sharon. So
very nice. But yeah, straying a little bit here. I'm not sure if I should mention like my sort of collecting arc, Rise and Fall, or what would be a good segue into that.
Before you go into that, no, it was not a toffee crisp. It was, it was all white. I remember that, and it just tasted really good. Nope, neither of those. If I could find the picture I took them at the time, I would let you know.
Yeah, let us know later. Sadly, this isn't a candy roundtable.
Yeah, we probably won't ever do one of those as close as we're going to get.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, yeah, I'll see if I find it before the stream's over.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead. I'm not exactly done with my arc yet, but you go ahead and go into yours for a little bit.
All right. Well, I really first got into retro collecting, not to aggrandize you too much, but I think it was a result of coming across the OPCFG and finding out that you and several other people are dedicated to grabbing games from yesteryear. And yeah, I realized in the early 2000s that it's like even in like mainstream stores like electronic boutiques and Toys R Us, where I remember in a Toys R Us clearance bin I got my box copy of Contra Hardcore, which was a fucking rad deal to say the least. I realized at that point that I never before had a Sega Genesis, and my Nintendo fanboyism hold was broke when I was impressed by the Dreamcast, and I really got into that. So I got a Genesis in 2002. First three games I got for it were Sonic 1, which is kind of unoriginal, Streets of Rage 1, which is a good idea, and good old Gunstar Heroes, which you had basically said was the best Genesis game ever. And while the yeah, exactly. While the label was somewhat worn, I was still glad to get it, and I didn't really care about the condition of what I got, just as long as it was, just as long as it worked well. So some I got boxed and relatively cheap. Like I remember in like a Jubilee store, some sort of like missionary clearance place. I found a box copy of the first Road Rash for just like $1, which
that wasn't owned by any shady missionaries, was it?
no beige ops to be conducted there. No, feel free to wedge in any Homestar or Simpsons references you can think of.
Dope.
But yeah, I recall, though, that, yeah, I got the Genesis and the first three games for it at what was once a fantastic chain by the name of Funko Land, which dealt in both classic and modern games. The Funko that I remember actually had a Genesis, among other systems, on display to play, and I forget if I told you this, but the demo game they had on the Genesis at the time was Splatterhouse 3.
Very nice. I don't think you told me that.
Oh, yeah, no, I managed to finally play. Like, I remember reading about Splatterhouse 2 back in, like, an old EGM or whatever, and I was like, oh, wow, they made a sequel? I'd love to play that someday. And then I learned from you that not only was there 2, but there was a 3, and then, they had 3 on demo over there, and it was, I believe, from that Funko Land that I got both 2 and 3. 2 was unfortunately kind of raggedy and out of box, but 3 did have the box, and I forget if it had the manual too, but it was in better condition. Well, nonetheless, Splatterhouse 2's American box art was not great, so not the hugest loss there. And I remember when I got Splatterhouse 3, and I got it for my... I got a Model 2 Genesis initially, but I also eventually got a Model 1 that was attached with the old school Sega CD, so I could play those games too. And yeah, I remember when I took home Splatterhouse 3, played it first, it was fairly late at night, and I got to stage 2 and I didn't go fast enough, and then just the creepy image of not quite transformed but no longer human Jennifer just made me think, well, that's enough for tonight. Okay, that's good. I was like, 13, 14 at the time. I was still kind of a wuss then, late bloomer, as they say. But
I can tell you that kind of imagery didn't freak me out usually, although I did have an experience when Silent Hill came out.
I think I might remember you talking about that. Silent Hill is definitely a game very much viable for disturbing moments, to say the least. So that's understandable.
Well, it's strange because this one in particular wasn't like a jump scare or anything like that, but it did make me jump. It didn't help I was playing it at 2 a.m. by myself in the dark either.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It was when I was exploring the school. And you hear that.
Oh, yeah.
The squeaking.
Yeah.
And you see the little kid-sized shadow just run by right on the fringes of your flashlight.
Yeah, those fucking little pieces of shit.
Yeah.
You're not the only one who was gotten by those technically interactable little squeakers that are just there to razz you. So.
Yeah. They're definitely there to do that. And I realize they don't hurt you, but it's like, okay. Someone spilled cola in your Sega CD, Rex? Yeah.
Bogus. Way bogus. That sucks.
Also, while you were talking originally, I did do a quick search to find out what that candy bar was, and I found it.
What was it?
It was a Lee's Scottish tablet.
Huh. I'm not sure I've ever heard of those.
Yep. Came packaged with my copy of Dynamite Ducks.
Nice.
So, yeah, I haven't had one since. Probably couldn't have one now, but it was good. All right, anyway, continue.
Realizing making up lost time for the Genesis also just sort of led me down a veritable pipeline to see, what NES, SNES, and Game Boy games I didn't get yet that I really wanted to catch up on, and I couldn't even tell you how I expanded my collection from there exactly, but,
well, I remember one thing you were doing. I remember when you were basically getting these deals on these imports and stuff that you really wanted.
Right. There were a few that, based on a little ditty from Portrait of Ruin on Castlevania on the DS, I marked the greatest 5, so to speak, imports that, based on your list in the OPCFG, for the most part, I felt like I should really have. They were Gradius Gaiden, which I actually got for quite cheap, like 20, 30 or so. It was just finding the means to play it that was the pain in the ass, so I just settled on running it on an emulator eventually, if I'm not mistaken. Snatcher on the Sega CD, that cost like $80, but it was worth it. I even got a fucking justifier with it. There aren't nearly enough action scenes to really justify Wink using it, but it was still pretty cool. It did enhance the authenticity a little bit, so. Let's see. Kazekiri, which I think was the last one I got, that we got from a friend of the Third Moon at the time, but I can't even remember their name. I'm not sure if it was Vlygar, who actually was on the moon somewhat recently, if it was someone else, but that cost like $75. Rondo Blood. Oh, what was that?
Clatcher Madon.
That's a name I haven't. That might have been it. Yeah, God, that's a name.
That's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Long time. I wonder how the hell they're doing.
I don't know. Think about them on Discord. I can always ask. Anyway.
Hey, cool.
But, yeah, go on.
And then, yep, Castlevania, Dracula X, Sekimojo, Dracula X, Shi no Rondo of Blood as we know it now, costs a sheer $100 on eBay, which I really had no concept of the possibility that it could ever get an English release later on in its existence. So I was happy to pay the premium price back then, even if I couldn't see the future, knowing that like a decade later it would be much more easily accessible. But it was what it was. And that is the same for The Last of the Greatest Five, Radiant Silvergun. Probably the one game I paid the most for, a fucking walloper of $150. I had some disposable income. Like, I didn't really have a job, but I did have an allowance. I didn't have bills I had to worry about, so I just saved up for some weeks, and that's what that was. So,
Anyway, hey, hon, if you happen to find one, let me know what you think. And I see Bruno's here.
hey, Bruno, how's it going? I was just talking about collecting for the Genesis a few minutes ago, your favorite forever, so.
Yeah.
But what else could I say about collecting? I don't know if you wanted to go on with your adventures more, or if I should continue, or what.
Well, I can go on for a little while longer.
Yeah.
Well, for example, in some cases, a lot of the games I had that I no longer wanted, I actually ended up helping out some people start their own collections, as Bruno can attest to.
Nice.
I cut him a heck of a deal on a nice lot of Master System games.
Oh, yes. Very nice.
See? Just like me. Exactly. And, it's... In my case, is that I just want them to go to a good home. I don't want to put them in the hands of some shady reseller who's going to be like, yeah, I just ripped this guy off so I can get some money. But,
Yeah.
So... But to my knowledge, Bruno has put them to good use.
Very good.
Yeah.
As opposed to selling it to an ivory dealer.
Exactly.
I think even that check is ivory.
That was a good one.
Yep.
Yep, they're being cherished and cared for here.
Good man.
In fact, I remember one thing. Oh, come on. Your bias is strictly Genesis. You like the Master System and the Saturn and the Dreamcast. Don't make all these people think you're some kind of anti-Sega person here, because I know the truth.
Like I unironically was for the first decade of my existence.
Boo.
I was a dork.
Now,
I still am, but yeah.
Well, there was something else I did once, too, actually.
What's up?
I had been gifted a Super NES by a mutual friend of ours. And a couple of games. And I was talking to my supervisor when I was... this is one of the security job I think I had the second longest after working at the casino. But he was saying about how he had his Xbox 360 or whatever the new one was at the time, and the games he had weren't much. He had 3 young kids. Not much they could play. And his wife wasn't really interested in them either. Well, I didn't need an extra Super NES. So I was like, tell you what. If you're going to be around before I head to work tomorrow, I'm going to stop over. I got something I think your kids are going to like. So I went through my collection and basically took a lot of the kid-friendly games I could find. Stuff like, Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. And also some classics like Space Invaders and so on and so forth. Packed them all up in a box, dropped over at his place, and of course I came in and the kids are all there and they're like, well, what's that box? It's like, yeah, I got something for you. Your dad said you didn't have nothing to play. So I pull out the Super NES and his wife immediately lights up because she loved playing it.
Nice.
And I'm going through all the games. They had I think she was about maybe 3 or 4 at the time. Youngest daughter, the minute she saw Mickey Mouse, she just grabbed the game and started hugging it. And his wife's like, yeah, she found her game. So, in the end, of course, the kids are super excited. They got, a brand new console with 10 games that are, relatively kid-friendly. And so on the way out, my supervisor pulled me aside. He's like, how much you want for all this? I was like, dude, treat kids. It's yours. And the last I talked to him, it's been a while, but last I'd heard, they were still using it. So
very good.
But yeah, I like to do things like that. Not because I want to get someone else starting on the whole collecting thing, but just to, you know, spread the love around for retro
Yeah.
gaming.
Yeah, no longer does anyone have to settle with a heck copy of, I don't know, Bebe's Kids that they've had forever. That's the first thing I think of.
Sure. First thing I'd do if I found out I had a copy of that kicking around would be throw it on eBay.
Yeah.
Being honest here.
I'm not usually in support of actively destroying cartridges, but I don't know about that one.
You know, on that subject, for the longest time in the Atari community, people were buying up copies of Ball Blazer because there were so many of them just to get the pokey chip to put in homebrews.
Oh yeah, right. That needs to be sacrificed for repros. That's right.
Yeah, I bought one just to save it from that fate.
I see. Interesting.
And sure enough, you know, eventually they ended up making the hokey chip, and now they don't need to carve up old copies of Ball Blazer anymore.
Good.
So, but I was just appalled seeing how many people were buying copies of Ball Blazers just to gut them.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's a pretty good game too.
There were only two official 1700 games released that used the pokey chip. That was one of them. The other was Commando, and no one was hacking up Commando.
Huh. Was that rare somehow?
It was definitely on the harder to find / more expensive side.
Interesting.
Ball Blazer at the time, I think you could get like 3 copies for $10.
Ah, yes, and Sharon has looked at the You Can Beat Video Games channel. Yeah, there's definitely some good stuff on there. I believe he covered River City Ransom most recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Barf!
This blows my day.
Uh,
Oh, good
and
times.
Rex has a point. My copy of Ball Blazer is just for playing Ball Blazer. Same here. So, but you know, it just seems like as time has gone on, it's just the whole feeling of like I've got to collect. You know, when I realized that some of it I was doing was basically to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. I had to take a step back and go, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not trying to score points here with anonymous people online. I'm buying games I like to play because I want to play them. I'm not just buying everything. I did fall into that trap for a little while,
Oh, yeah.
but I got out of it. So, and that's when one of the big purges came in.
Right.
If you remember correctly, I did do some purging. Mutual acquaintance of ours actually benefited from that. And then just earlier, as the years have gone by since those purges, it's been like, I'm being more selective here. And it's like, and then of course the whole flashcard thing. And it's like,
Right.
why am I going to pay $300 for a copy of The Adventures of Batman and Robin on Super NES when I can just load it onto this flashcard and play it? And it's just like playing the original cartridge.
Yeah, exactly.
So that may have contributed as well, at least to me. But yeah, if it saves me money in the long run, then I don't mind it too bad.
Yeah, of course.
So rather, what I've turned my attention towards is the homebrew scene.
Oh, yeah.
There is still a lot of good stuff coming out. I've just in the past, I'll say year or two, I've picked up NES homebrews like Orebody, Minder's Tale, Montezuma's Revenge. And the most recent one, which I got at Free Play Florida last weekend, was Yeah Yeah Beavis 2 by John Riggs.
Yeah, that's right. John created a unofficial sequel to what is kind of sort of solved, but to some extent is still one of gaming's greatest mysteries.
Yeah, that it is. But it's a fun little game. Have you ever played it?
I haven't, but I have seen bits of it. I should get into. I should look into it more.
Yeah, it definitely harkens back to the earlier days of like arcade games.
Right, like Haguro-man on Retro Game Challenge.
I don't know, I was thinking something maybe more along the lines of, like, say, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I
But,
was thinking Ninja Jaja Marukun for some weird reason.
mm,
That's less famous
yeah,
than Donkey Kong, but it's just what came to mind first, so.
true. But then you have the Atari homebrew scene.
Which
And,
is really surprisingly deep. I was shocked
yes,
when you told me about how the previously neglected 7800 basically found a second life among enterprising designers
oh,
nowadays.
yes. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Kate, what
Hey,
up?
glad you could swing by for a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
But, yeah, and the 2600 homebrew scene itself is enormous. I mean, it's barely penetrable at this point.
Somehow, yes.
There are. It's staggering. There's almost as many homebrew games as there are original games.
Exactly.
Got a few of them. Now, of course, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with what happened with Atari Age being bought out by Atari.
Alas.
And Atari Age was pretty much the main source for homebrews, though there are a couple other places that do them. And because they're now officially owned by Atari, they had to discontinue a lot of the homebrews, which are kind of unauthorized ports, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I guess I understand the reasons, but it still sucks in my opinion.
I don't know, Rex. It's not quite that bad. I mean, the only game I know of which, well, there's a lot of them now because Atari had discontinued so many of them. But the only one I could think of before now would have been Ricky and Vicky.
Yeah, I know that one also had a Steam release.
It's worth buying the Steam release, I can tell you that. Not only are you going to get off a lot cheaper, but who here besides me has a 7800? Anyone?
Yeah. No Bueller this time.
Oh, we got to wait for people to respond, too.
Oh. Yeah, if anyone has a 7800, write in. Fuck, I never even owned a 2600.
Ah, see, Rex
Way to
has
go.
one.
Way to go, Rex. Shit, very nice.
Yeah. It's like most of the games that Atari Age sells for the 7800 go from $60 complete in box down to like $30 for a cartridge with manual.
Oh, Kate, what one 7800 game do you have?
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Is it Midnight Mutants? Because I know that one's one of the few exclusives that's very prized for that console.
Bruno, I presume you're talking about the 2600 Plus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I've been following the threads over on the Atari Age forum about that. Oh, Food Fight.
Sweet.
Yes, that's an excellent game.
Oh, yes.
And the 700 port is no slouch at all.
Giant mouth.
Mm-hmm. But as far as 2600 Plus is concerned, at least Atari's actually working with the people behind Stella to go ahead and get it to read as many cartridges as possible.
That's cool.
They have a long way to go, and it'll never be like an FPGA console, but at least the majority of the 2600 stuff works. But I'll say this, it's better than a Retron 77.
Retron 7. I feel like you mentioned that at some point, but I just can't flip and remember.
Well, I did. I used the Atari Age, what's the word I'm looking for here? Community build to go ahead and basically make it a self-contained HD 2600.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, and that works pretty well too. So, but no, I prefer to do my Atari gaming on the 7800. So I have no desire to buy a 2600 Plus, but there are a couple of games that they've released for I wouldn't mind picking up because they do work in the original hardware.
Yeah, Atari at least respected the factor of backwards compatibility, which really surprisingly over the years has just been such a fucking crapshoot. It's frustrating.
Oh, the Jaguar. We were just talking about that last week, weren't we? Or was it the week before that?
We were recently, whatever the case, yeah.
The transitional years. That stream.
That's the one, yeah. Where we described all the quote-unquote loser consoles.
Basically everything from the end
I
of the
hate,
16-bit era.
I hate putting anything in terms that sounds like, high school console wars kiddie bullshit, but those consoles were losers. I'm sorry, I can't sugarcoat it.
CDI especially.
No, I don't think the CDI was the worst of the worst.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot all about that thing I talked about that we played the video for.
Yeah, that was the worst. I
Yes.
never heard of it before, and I feel poor for knowing that it exists, so thank you.
Yep. And in all honesty, a Jaguar is definitely not the worst thing out there.
It's got like 3, 4 maybe good games. Same for the 3DO, I guess.
However, there are Jaguar homebrews coming out too.
No shit. Cool.
Bruno, one of these days, sir. One of these days. Yep. You're going to earn every quack that's coming your way. Oh, boy. But, yeah, they've actually done some really good homebrews from what I understand. But I don't follow the Jag homebrew scene, so...
Oh yeah, Heihan talks about like the Doom ports for the Jaguar one was relatively cromulent. It was the 3DO one that really sucked, right?
I guess.
Poor Rebecca Heinemann was just up against the wall trying to work out how to program it unenviably for that system, as I recall. So
I think I remember briefly playing it when I had that 3DO down here that my friend asked me to sell for him. Yeah, not a fan of that console at all.
Yeah. Well, at least the PlayStation came out so you could get your Gex fix. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there is that.
Fox Mulder's sister, etc.
I prefer the PS1 Gex game, or the first one out of the two. No,
Enter the Gecko was actually surprisingly alright. I actually got into
that's
that,
the name.
and I actually 100%ed it back in the day. It was actually pretty okay for what it was.
Yeah.
Then Deep Cover Gecko came out, and then I just lost interest for some reason. I don't know why.
I think I played it briefly, and I also played the port of the original they released for it. That was nothing I was thrilled about.
The first Gex game is whelming, as I like to say.
Yeah. Now Rex brings up Road Rash for the 3DO, which that was the one that stuck with me the most from the entire library of games I was left with.
Yep.
And it's like it had Road Rash, and it had Road Rash. Let's not forget Road Rash.
That was the one that actually had Soundgarden's Rusty Cage license for it, right?
Yes, which I think also made it to the PlayStation.
Right. Excellent.
But to get back more on the whole homebrew thing, you're getting a small amount of homebrews for the Super NES and a whole bunch come out for the Genesis. Bruno.
Yeah, the Genesis homebrew scene is pretty impressive. I really like that one game, Tanzer, that's like a very European sort of Strider-esque game that for some reason also feels kind of like it's been influenced by Aeon Flux. Best way I can put it. It's a really bizarre, human horror aesthetic to it, but it's really cool. Very fucking tough also. I don't think I ever got past the second stage yet. Out of 8.
Yeah, there's actually one I'm waiting on right now. I had pre-ordered Life on Earth.
Oh?
Which was the sequel to Life on Mars. Now, Life on Mars is a Metroidvania.
Oh, yeah.
Life on Earth is a flat-out side-scrolling run and gun.
Cool.
And both of those were done by the same group that did Metal Dragon.
Oh, really?
Oh, boy. Bruno with his Mario here.
He is really in troll mode tonight.
Yes, he is. But I've got a small collection of Genesis homebrews. You know, Xenocrisis, of course.
Natch.
Let's see, Tanzer. I wanted to pick that up too. It actually reminds me of like Strider meets Shadow of the Beast.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I've got Metal Dragon. And if that's like playing Mercs, but with a really immature script.
This sounds vaguely familiar.
It's like a Metal Gear Solid parody.
Yeah, I remember there's a game by the name of Unmetal that is basically the same, similar bent of rather immature take on it.
Yeah.
Although, some might debate calling the Metal Gears mature by most metrics for how ridiculous the series got later.
No, this is just like, when you have lines like, I will penetrate the fuck out of that base.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's humorous to a degree.
So basically, Avi Shankar wrote it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
so, Kate, you actually have a copy of Paprium, I think is how
oh
it's
yeah,
pronounced.
Craftrium. That's right. I'm sorry.
More like Vaprium, because was that game ever going to come out? Apparently it did, but now you can't get any copy for lower than $1,000.
And like it's unemulatable, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Things and such.
Exactly, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it really is.
But I'm still very interested in the Genesis homebrew scene. I backed the Irena. I can't remember the subtitle, but it's a shooter. Backed that up back then on Kickstarter a while back.
Nice.
Here's hoping that's coming out next year. Let's see. Life on Earth, I played the demo. That's really good. And there's been a couple other ones too. I think I had a couple of reproductions made a while back, just of games you couldn't get otherwise because they were already too expensive. Yeah, hey hon, that's kind of what happened to it, as I understand it. But I don't really know the full story.
Yeah,
I just know that the game was delayed for 100 years. And when it finally came out, it was just like, hey, it's out here. And only a few people get it because whatever. So, I don't know. But, some of the games like, have you ever played the Mega Drive Sailor Moon game?
Might have. Don't remember too much from it. I'm more familiar with the arcade beat 'em up based on that property.
I think it's based on that, actually.
Oh, okay.
But it's better than the Super Famicom games, I can tell you that.
I think I remember hearing that at some point, yeah.
Oh, there was some repro creator who did this really, really nice deluxe edition of the game.
Oh, really?
Even down to a pink cartridge. As Sharon keeps saying here, there's a lot of retro games on the Switch. This is true. And
that is indeed true, yes.
And a lot of re-releases you wouldn't expect, like Osman.
Yeah. Fucking...
Who saw that coming?
I sure as fuck didn't. I only first learned what Osman was like a decade ago on... I forget if I learned about it on the Moon first or if I heard about an update elsewhere, but I remember saying, oh yeah, this Osman game's playable on main now, and you're like, Osman's fucking playable? I have to go now. And
legitimately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rex, is that the condensed version of the story about what happened with Paprium? Hey! Sit on it, Potsy.
Something jumped a shark, etc. I don't know.
And Sharon does bring up Alex Kidd in Miracle World, which got a really nice DX remake.
I never got around to that. Did you?
Yeah, she's got it. I played it.
How is it?
Really well done. They basically laid all the remade stuff over the original, so.
I really should get on that sometime then.
Hey, Ryan, how's it going? Thanks you to join us.
Hey, Ryan, how do?
Sharon, I'll explain Osmond later. Let's just say it's very, very closely related to Strider.
And also, your boss just came out of the bath for some reason.
Jack.
That game makes less than 0 cents. It's kind of why I like it. Although it does certainly have some warts that the original Strider didn't, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, it was Izuke's a regular sequel to Strider.
True.
Ooh, Blue Label, Alex Kidd and Shinobi World. Nice.
Excellent.
So, but yeah, I've been focusing more on homebrews than actually trying to actively go back and collect retro stuff. And yeah, the price has been a bit of a deterrent, but also just because I've been there. Been there, done that.
Exactly.
There's still plenty of good stuff out there, and I enjoy playing it, but it's just not like it was back in the unexplored days.
That not just in your case, but I just feel like in general that retro gaming has sort of reached a finite point of knowledge where, like, I know the term hidden gem was bandied about quite a bit like 10, 15 years ago, but that almost seems inaccurate to call anything that nowadays, at least for better known consoles, because, like, of course everyone knows Vice Project Doom is an awesome game, even if it wasn't all that well known back in the day. Can we really call it a hidden gem if every fucking person knows about it in our circles at this point?
Exactly. Sharon poses a question. While I was in Free Play Florida, I picked her up a selection of games from Premium Edition.
Oh.
And they are retro styled, but they're not retro.
Oh.
It was the Pigeon Devs game pack, if I remember correctly. So there's like 4 games. And a couple of them look like they were deliberately designed with a Game Boy aesthetic. And the other 2 look like 16-bit, if I remember correctly. I haven't actually seen them in action yet, but yeah, there are very few obscure games now.
Yeah, like, the thrill of discovery not being there anymore, I could see as being a very viable reason why collecting just doesn't have the same punch that it used to. In my case, though, specifically, I think it was mostly just out of convenience that I stopped collecting. Like, just to elaborate a little more on other stuff I collected, like, I got a pretty good deal on, like, a TurboGrafx CD, a 16 with the CD attachment, I believe, like the 3.0 arcade guard, which would allow me to play most of its library U-card or CD. And I even got some bonus games with that, because it was a little bit of a weird deal from the Retro Gaming Roundtable and Digital Press back in the day, but, you know, bonus stuff was bonus stuff. And, what else? Like, I didn't get the so-called loser consoles that we talked about, but, yeah, I did really like collecting for the TG16, making up for lost time at the Genesis, getting whatever portable games looked nice. I was able to find the surprisingly good Mega Man 4 and 5 on the Game Boy for decent prices back then. That's certainly not going to be the goddamn case now for those installments. I'm trying to think what were some, like, you know, lesser known consoles. I mean, you know, I guess, you know, at that point, eventually the PS1 fell into being retro, and I was very glad at a convention to find the Misadventures of Tron being somewhat rare as that was, and I think I only got it for like $30. Oh yes, the Saturn, of course, the unfortunate quote-unquote loser of the 5th generation among the big 3 companies at the time. But the Saturn did have some surprisingly good titles on it, mostly in the import sphere. I remember its internal battery was kaput, but I got an action replay cart that did allow me to save how all the games were, although I had to take extra care that I didn't, like, unnecessarily overwrite them or whatever. That took a little bit of effort to manage, but it still allowed me to get what I want. And I remember getting as much as I possibly could on Guardian Heroes back in the day. Ooh, that was a trial. And then I got like Bulk Slash for like $60 at a convention, and I think that was probably the best deal I was going to get on that. I remember you highly recommending that at the time as well. That's a great
game. I'd still recommend it now.
And I still can't believe it actually got an English translation lately, and fully voiced too, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, I know. Impressive. And it actually is fully voiced in English.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's beyond awesome. Oh yeah. I do have Cannon Spike actually. I don't know how much I paid for it, but definitely not the bullshit extortionate prices that you see for it nowadays.
Oh yeah, I got mine cheap when I had it. And, 32X box for $2 at a flea market. Damn.
Damn indeed. And at some point, like, even the fucking 6th gen turned retro, so I had to go in the aftermarket to get games for the PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. And, the Xbox kind of, in a weird way, sort of being the Dreamcast 2 at the time. I barely played Gun Valkyrie, but I sure got that one for cheap. Oh yeah, and I got Panzer Dragoon Orta for a reasonable price also. Anyway,
Also, just wanted to say, Kate got Wild Guns for $40 in the late 2000s. That's a bargain.
That's not bad at all, definitely. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the last system I remember collecting for with any zeal was the most underrated handheld ever made, the Neo Geo Pocket Collar.
Yeah, I remember playing that once at a demo kiosk.
It is a really awesome little machine, and certainly it does have some of the best pocket fighting games you'll ever see, that being sort of SNK's Major Stock and Trade, but, it had a lot of other good stuff on there. It had a pretty good and a very awesome Metal Slug game. First mission, which was alright, but had some problems. Second mission, which was just straight up damn good. Also had puzzle games and sports games. It was a surprisingly diverse little bugger. One of the more underrated games on it. It's like, again, I can't really call it a hidden gem now, but maybe back then it's not one many people would have heard about, which was Dark Arms, a sort of like, horror Zelda-esque sort of game, which I believe was actually a spin-off of Beastbusters, crazy enough. Base NGPC enjoyer, my brother in Christ, Heihan, yes. Well, not Christ, in SNK, I guess.
I do want to bring up something else Heihan brought up here about getting that Lethal Enforcers PCB for £10 because it was listed on eBay misspelled, so no one else found it. I had a similar experience.
Dang.
When I was actually getting into collecting Super Famicom games, I noticed one of the ones I wanted the most was on the pricey side already. And this was, back around 2010 or so.
I see.
And that would have been Macross Scrambled Valkyrie.
Oh, that is a great fucking shmup. That is like... That game really impressed me when I finally got around to it. Like, I thought I had plumbed the depths of SNES hidden gems fairly, but I only encountered that one, actually got around playing that one like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was just blown the fuck away. It is really goddamn good.
Well, here's what happened with that. People were wanting like $60 for a loose card at the time. I'm sure it's 10 times that now.
Yeah.
But I was looking around and I just put a general search in for Macross. And I happened to see it's like Macross and Scrambled Valkyrie was completely misspelled.
Really?
$20, buy it now.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. And it's an authentic cartridge too, so it wasn't like I was buying some Chinese pirate.
Wow, I am jelly at that. I am very jelly, sir.
So
I only actually have one import SFC cart, and that is Jackie Crush, the lesser-known third installment of the Crush Pinball trilogy, to which Alien and Devil Crush on the TG-16 also belongs.
Scam build Valkyrie. Now, Rex, you also mentioned you got your TG-16 for $10 at a yard sale that was run by a branch of the Addams family.
What the fuck?
Tell me at least Thing took your money.
Yeah.
Or Cousin It. One of the two. But the question is, were they selling the Addams Family game with it?
The really bad one where for some reason you play as Dan Hedaya.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Instead of playing as any of the actual Adamses, you play as the evil lawyer. Brain geniuses! Who got a raise for that fucking idea? What the Christ?
I don't know, but if you pardon me for a second, I got a stowaway in my room right now.
Oh shit. Well,
yes,
I take care of that. Oh.
This is... Here, go ahead and say something, Jonesy.
It's purring. It's a kitty.
Yes, this would be our kitten. He's only about 3 months old now. We found him abandoned on our doorstep around end of September. And he is growing like a weed. He's as healthy as a very small horse, according to the vet. And he managed to sneak his way in here whenever he gets a chance. So, say hi to the people, Jonesy. Yes, Sharon found him. Okay, he's getting kicked out. Hi, Jonesy. Yeah. So, yeah, minor kitty break there.
Aww. That is always appreciated.
Yes.
But yeah, the NGPC was the last console I really collected for, and I just like on eBay, I just got the inclination to just strike up most of the things I could get, which are relatively cheap, like Baseball Stars and Neo Turf Masters and Puzzle Link or whatever, or Puzzle Loop. I might be confusing those. There might be 2 games called that. There was one game I was willing to put some extra oomph into, which at the time, even while the bubble was on the rise, but even before then, it was kind of getting up there, which was SNK Gals Fighters. And hey, Prime, I forget if I acknowledged you earlier, sir. My apologies if I did not.
Yeah, I didn't even see you come in, so...
Yeah, sorry about that. Shit.
So how's it going, Prime?
Yeah, hey, man. But yeah, I wanted to pay some extra for SNK Gals Fighters, which I hear was a very surprisingly awesome fighting game, which was the idea of its own fighter that was a crossover of several of SNK's ladies at the time, like Yuri and Athena, and your favorite Leona, I believe, was in there also.
Yeah, she's a good one.
And Nakaruru and Akari from Last Blade, etc. And that one was really cool, but it was also getting sort of up there, and I paid fairly clean $60 for it. Probably not the best price I could have gotten, but from what I gathered, it also certainly wasn't the worst. So,
I can tell you, last console I was collecting for was actually the Saturn.
Ah, that makes sense.
And that's because I managed to get a modded one for a good deal from a guy I know.
Very
and
nice.
Then another friend of mine ended up sending me back my old collection of imports I'd sold him over a decade ago.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And I picked up a couple other cheap ones here and there and then just said, I'm done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and when I was satisfied with my NGPC collection, there was like 20 games I had for, I thought, hey, you know what? This is cool. And just something in me told me, you know, I think I'm good. I don't think I want to necessarily plumb eBay for anything else. I feel like, you know, I don't necessarily need to purchase anymore. And I have toyed with the idea of maybe selling some of my collection, but I've been way too lazy and am still not really sure of the best way to go about that. So,
well,
yeah, that I'm not sure about.
I've managed to whittle down my collection to basically what I want to own. You know.
Yeah.
All right, Kate.
Oh, hey, see you later, Kate. It's great to have you in here as always.
Absolutely. So have a good one.
Yeah.
There's still the occasional retro game I want to pick up. In fact, when I was at a Free Play Florida, I was gifted one as a birthday present.
Oh, really?
Yes. That would have been High Seas Havoc.
Which,
Which,
I know that one.
Yeah, it's my second favorite and probably last favorite mascot platformer.
Oh, High Seas Havoc. Sorry,
Yeah.
I misheard that. My bad.
Now, I was talking about High C Havoc, the game that you wreak havoc with High C.
Fruit
Ecto
Punch.
Ecto Cooler is a bonus DLC.
God damn it.
But yeah, I've wanted to copy that one for a while, so when I found it there, I couldn't pass it up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But everything else has been homebrews, and the other thing that I've been doing a lot with is actually, before I get into that, what's the sweet spot number for a collection? I guess it just depends on the person who's doing the collecting.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it depends on the size of the console itself, but I would say try not to go over roughly half of the games. Maybe 60% at most, but beyond that, and I think you're just starting to plumb for the worst of the worst, so.
Yeah. But one thing I've been doing to actually fill in the gap, so to speak, is to actually get my original consoles modified. Do a complete recap, make sure they stay running. And a couple of them are probably going to outlive me. My 7800 I just got back recently from having a complete overhaul. It's like it had been overhauled briefly about 4 or 5 years ago. Sent it back to the same guy who's done a lot of work since then in 7800s, and he did with the works. He even installed a custom BIOS called the Kiloparsec BIOS, because now I can just turn on the system and play a game. Don't even have enough cartridges in there.
Cool.
But yeah, had my Genesis, had that triple bypass modded, recapped, everything, and it never looked or sounded as good as it does now. It's like I missed out on stuff like the Mega SG and the Mega was the Super Nintendo version of that.
I'm not sure on. Oh, the analog.
Yeah.
Fuck. I did actually get one of those, and I can't remember its fucking name. God damn it.
The only one I've gotten that's been a new one has been the AVS.
Right.
And that's a pretty sweet little thing. Hey, Brandon, that's strange YouTube didn't say anything about this, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah, sorry the bastard didn't kick in there.
Yeah. Sarah, we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes now.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, just making sure the stuff stays up and running has been my biggest priority. I had the same thing done to my core graphics too.
Yeah. I appreciate that there are hobbyists that can keep things running, whether it's consoles or even individual games, but the factor of bit rot does genuinely worry me, and that's why I've been contemplating selling what I have before it essentially becomes completely useless to anyone. So, if I am going to do that, I feel like I need to pull the trigger sooner than later.
I'm keeping what I have now because, simply put, it belongs in a museum.
Yes. Fuck
but
yeah.
I will play everything I can with flashcards, EverDrives, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I just stopped collecting out of convenience. Like, the bullshit retro pricing bubble aftermarket, which I will always angrily rant about anytime it comes anywhere near my periphery, that has certainly been a reason why I feel it's just not worth it anymore. But yeah, Sharon, actually, that's it. Everyone is now digital, and I just thought around the time that I got all the games I wanted to for the NGPC that I could reasonably, I just thought, I'll just settle with emulation from now on. For most of the things I want to play, it's more or less dead on at this point. And being that I'm less on retro collection now and more on game preservation. I'm huge on game preservation nowadays. Although collection is a big part of it for those who are willing to actually get games so that they can upload all their information to an easily accessible platform. FC Ultra X works great for the NES. Like Duck Station is a really good one for the PlayStation 1. There are all sorts of great emulators out there nowadays. Even systems that have not been emulated greatly before, like the Saturn, is actually better to emulate now than it was in the PS2 also. There's still some that I think need some work to get on them. I think the original Xbox still has some encryption that it has to deal with. Now here the N64 surprisingly still kind of sucks, which I don't know how that is like that, but it's getting there, and I do really encourage emulation efforts to just keep on doing what they do. There are even some arcade games I'd love to play that haven't been really greatly emulated. Like, there are only like 7 games ever released for the Hyper Neo Geo 64, but I will play Biriki 1 some goddamn day. I swear it.
Was Planet Harriers ever emulated properly?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure if it was. If anyone knows about Planet Harrier's emulation status, write in, because off the top of my head, that I'm not sure about.
Yeah,
Sharon, I will say, at least for modern games, I do try to get physical when I can. I still get physical games for the Switch if there is significantly major release. Like, I just got the Switch cards for Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Super Mario RPG's remake just the past few months. Like, I am mostly willing to stay digital, but there are still a few cases where I'd like to own it in a more tangible form. It's kind of on a case-by-case basis, but for the most part, if things are going to go all digital, I might have some protests, but as long as I can still play video games in some form that I can get into, I'm not going to complain too much about it, so it is what it is.
basically, yes. It is what it is. And Planet Harriers is a custom Naomi board.
I see.
Also, Rex, you do have a point there with Nintendo.
What did Rex say? Nintendo's policy is you will own nothing and we don't. Yeah, Nintendo has been. What's the word I'm looking for? Not anti-consumer yet. They've sort of been anti-preservation, and frankly, they can fuck themselves for that. Okay, there are many bad things that many game companies are up to. I hate to say that Nintendo is one of the less bad ones as far as corporate goonery is concerned, but they still got quite a bit of corporate goonery going for them, I'm not going to lie.
Well, it's kind of like the whole situation with, physical versus streaming movies and TV.
I see, yeah. Yeah, I can see that, the parody in that also.
I mean, you just recently had both Christopher Nolan and who's the guy that did Pan's Labyrinth?
Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, both of them basically came out and said anyone who's actually collecting physical movies, no matter what the format, yeah, they're doing God's work.
Yeah, I can absolutely get behind that. Good men.
That's why I was very happy to hear that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was going to be coming out physically.
Oh yeah, I almost feel that like physical versus digital is it's like a subject that's somewhat parallel to this, but it almost feels like something that might be worth examining more on its own on another stream. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, possibly. We'll see about that.
Hey, hon, I love Nintendo, and yet I hate Nintendo. They can still make a damn good hell-ass game. I'll definitely give them that. It's just, some of their business decisions are not excellent. They seem a lot more rabid than other companies in shutting down fan projects, which I think is royally bogus, but...
It's Nintendo we're talking about. They've been pulling this shit since the 80s.
Yeah, like... I wouldn't be surprised if they hired Fat Tony and the Springfield Mafia to spread pretzels, i.e. Nintendo goodies, everywhere.
Well, you know what happened after they had all those accusations against them in the late 80s and early 90s. They had those policies where if you signed with Nintendo, then you couldn't release any games for
Yeah,
other consoles and all that.
They're incredibly draconian third-party policies, which led Konami to create Ultra games just so that they could release twice their output, more or less, in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking weird.
Hey, Konami's the only one that figured out a way around it, apparently.
Yeah, good Konami, as it were.
You know what Nintendo's basically when the government said, hey, you can't do this kind of thing anymore, Nintendo's like, okay, we'll send $5 gift certificates to everybody.
That feels like a move at like OCP out of RoboCop would pull. Like, I don't know, like just put a Band-Aid on it without even putting any ointment on the fucking problem.
Yeah, and then they call it hit piece on Sega because their Mortal Kombat outsold Nintendo's.
That's just being salty.
Oh yeah, it is. And of course, that led to the infamous moment of Night Trap will never appear on a Nintendo system ever.
Hang on. Comedy plus time equals more comedy.
Exactly. But anyway, so these days, basically, aside from the occasional retro game that I still pick up from time to time, which, another example, there was somebody I know on a forum who was selling some stuff off on the cheap side, so I helped him out, bought 4 NES games from him.
Oh, very nice.
Good ones, too, so.
What were they, if I might ask?
Oh, if I remember correctly, let's see, Joust.
Good.
Gauntlet 2.
Cool. Oh yeah, I remember you mentioning these.
I think Pinball and Kung Fu were the other ones.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mentioned those at one point. See, Prime remembers those hearings.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat and Splatterhouse 3 were...
Splatterhouse 3 was an afterthought in that hearing.
Right. It wasn't one of the main focuses. It was just... Like, I think it was, in a way, a good thing to bring up the ESRB, and, you know, it even... That even kind of got Nintendo to sort of loosen up, and finally, with their SNES port of Mortal Kombat 2, they finally started to usher in an era where they would accept more mature games on their console. So that wasn't a bad thing in and of itself. It was just the sort of, like, Helen Lovejoy-ass attitude on games that was just sort of...
Please think of the children.
That was just sort of eye-rolling, and, like... I feel like I don't hear that as much about video games anymore, but maybe I'm just not looking the right places. I don't know.
Well, remember, it was that kind of thinking, too, that led to that really crappy console whose name I can't think of offhand, but we totally made fun of.
The VCR thingy.
The right. VIS. That's it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hoo boy.
Yeah.
Sharon, I will say that is something that really fucking sucks about all digital now. Like what happened with the would-be Silent Hill game PT. How that basically just got, like, unmade from existence, and it's just really fucking disgusting, very anti-preservation, and you get more of that bullshit nowadays, and that is absolutely something I can objectively say that is terrible about modern gaming.
And that's one thing about preservation that I wanted to bring up, is the fact that it's actually, you know, keeping some games which would have been locked to just digital storefronts and whatnot alive. Look at the Rebirth games.
Yes, yeah. You have to resort to emulation to fucking play those now.
Yep, plus the games that Sega basically locked to their Genesis mini consoles.
The Space Harrier 2 DX ROM still hasn't been cracked, has it?
Nope. And then, of course, there was the 3 arcade versions that were on the TurboGrafx Mini.
That's right.
So, yeah. Wow,
well,
that sucks,
things
right?
Loosen. Yeah, at least that... I remember Activision has deleted the 2009 Wolfenstein game from all digital storefronts, and fuck them back and forth for it. But
It's like,
I don't want to be. Sorry, Rob. What were you going to say?
then whoosh, it was gone. Where? Well, no one knows where.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to be that guy who just like poo-poos on modern gaming just for being modern gaming. I'll leave that to Rob.
I can't really say that I dislike it. It's just not for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I see some of the games that Betty plays sometimes, and it's like, it's interesting to watch, but in some cases, I'd rather see it as, say, a movie.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I really like a lot of modern games, and like for the past several years, I think after we got out of what I feel was a real doldrummy time for video games. I used to call them the Gears years, but I've come around on actually appreciating Gears of War. But unfortunately, so I just
it's gonna stick anyway. So
yeah, it's just too catchy not to. But gaming went through, I think, a legitimately shitty period for a while, in like the late 2000s and early 2010s. The gaming was just not for me, and a lot of attitudes and paradigms at the time, I think, were just really annoying. But it got better eventually, and then in 2017, I think we hit a real renaissance with the Switch being released, like some of the best Mario and Zelda games we've seen in a while, lots of creative titles like Cuphead and Hollow Knight and Nier Automata, and some series that had gotten out of touch really refinding their roots like Resident Evil and Tekken and so forth. And I think that gaming's been on a really good hot streak for the past several years, and 2023 has had some really fucking great games, both quality and quantity. Unfortunately, the manpower aspect, the business aspect, has been terrible, and I think that 2024 is going to be a bad year for gaming because everyone's been fucking fired.
Yeah.
But, time rolls on the way it does. I just don't retro collect, due in part because I want to save my money for games that are out now and that interest me, when I can just emulate and play older games for free. I don't see much point on a practical point of view, and that I can have them all on one magical box, aka my PC, is just a nice bonus. So,
now, you mentioned that period of time where it just wasn't for you, and I went through my own period of that in the 90s.
I see.
It's like everything that once the 16-bit wars are winding down, and we're getting all this stuff. Even the early years of the PlayStation and Saturn didn't really impress me. It wasn't until about 1997 or so when things started to pick back up.
Right.
And then that was like my renaissance right there.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's cyclical.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and honestly, I would never have even upgraded past the PS2 if Splatterhouse 2010 hadn't come out.
Oh, EverDrives are cool. I definitely support that. I'm glad Crix, if I'm pronouncing it right, got to reopen his store after really, really shitty, bad political things happened. But I'm glad that he managed to get his EverDrive storefront back up. Mm-hmm. And Rob has also promoted the likes of EverDrives and multi-carts that you can program in. I'm totally all for those. I'm not sure if and when I'll get those myself. I'm okay with just playing emulators on the PC, but it'd be nice someday.
Well, I like to be able to go off to my own little game corner, so to speak.
Yeah,
and just fire up stuff on a console, not have the headphones on, and just play whatever I want to, like I was playing it back in the day.
Oh shit, Crix went to Brazil. Very good for him.
Yeah. There's another good one that recently was released. I'm not sure if you heard of the 7000 GD.
I'm not sure I do.
7000 GD is everything. There's been a couple of, I guess you could say, EverDrives for the 7800. There was the Dragonfly, which ended up having to be discontinued because it got too impossible to get parts and stuff for it, but that was apparently the best one. Then there was the Concerto, which I had for a while, but that had problems. But the GD just takes it entirely different level. Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, Rex. The harmony wasn't too bad, if I remember correctly. And the GD, it's still pretty new, so it's still priced pretty high. But
That's a good point, Sharon. Although I do have USB hard drives, several of them that I backed up much of my ROM collections on also. So it's not going to go away unless a massive disaster just obliterates me somehow.
yeah, I don't know, a meteor.
Yeah, or a flaming bus drops in from half across the world. A tornado horked it up and just lands in my house. Like what happened in Donnie Darko? Some bullshit like that.
I was just watching that the other day.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And Rex, about the 7000 at least, you can over on the Atari Age forum they have this one member who always puts together these ROM packs. So you basically get damn near every game ever made you can put on those things. Which is nice, because that also includes all the games with the special chips and all that. With the exception of stuff like Ricky and Vicky. Because you have to have a Dragonfly or a GD to go ahead and play that one and actually have the music intact. But yeah, so it's basically what it kind of boils down to. It's like after spending several decades of my life collecting and playing, I'm just kind of just going back to just playing again and not really even collecting all that much.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about collecting. Are we just doing this to put nice little things up on a shelf, or are we here to get actual entertainment out of the things that we collect? It's like when you go too far down the tunnel, you just have to ask yourself why you're doing it.
Exactly. And I got what I want. I'm, aside from one or two here and there, I'm done.
Yeah. I gladly await when Bariki 1 gets emulated, and I think Hyper Neo Geo 64 has had some advancement on it lately, but for the most part, I'm content knowing that I've gotten to play almost everything I want to, and that's good enough.
I will say, though, I am at heart a collector. So I'm always be collecting something. I take after my mom that way.
Yeah. At the point where I am, where I've become very money conscious, almost to the point of being greedy, I can't say that I am, but maybe I still am to an extent. I'm just denying it. I don't know.
Well, lately I've been collecting all the Paperback Paradise postcards.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Some of those are just downright hilarious.
Nice.
Yeah, I got a pack today, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think one was titled, Paperback Paradise does. They take old sci-fi novels and whatnot, and they'll completely, change the title so there's something entirely new. So they had this one where it's got this looks like a silhouetted naked woman standing there in front of these giant test tubes that have naked dudes in them, but their heads are skulls.
Fuck.
And they changed the title of whatever that book is to The Forging of My Fuckmen.
What the fuck?
You'd have to read the description they did of it. It's just hysterical. It's like, why would you do this? You are scaring me.
That is very bizarre, I must say.
Yeah, but it's Paperback Paradise we're talking about. They've been doing stuff like this for quite some time now.
Scroll Boss, that's it exactly. It's like seeing people post about getting toys and never about enjoying them. And I just think that anyone who's just gotten to that point in collecting has... I'm sorry, but someone who's gotten to that point just feels like they've lost their soul. They just went down an alleyway that they just really lost themselves, and I think that mindset is, I don't know if pitiful is too strong a word, but I really hope I never get to that. So I've basically stepped away from retro collecting before I do get to that point, because I might be addicted to playing games, but at least that costs less money than being addicted to buying them. So.
Now, on the subject of toys, I do have a small toy collection. I will say that personally, I don't open them up usually. Yeah, if they're new, because in a way, it's kind of like trying to make up for my childhood where I did open everything up and play for it. Whereas if I still had all that, it would be like, oh, this is something I had 40 years ago. But I'm content just to look at them, really.
I know that you do have a significant Indiana Jones collection. So.
Yeah, that's another collection of mine that I have been keeping up with.
Yep.
So, but no, I like looking at them. I don't really like, taking them out and whatnot. But I have a collection of loose figures for that, though. If I really want to take them out and check them out. So, okay. $600 action figure? Those exist. Now, Brandon, we did actually talk about homebrew and new NES and Genesis games earlier on before you joined us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one could say my life expectancy has been shortened because of my liver disease. Yeah. So, in a way, I'm just buying what I have and enjoying it while I have it, just in my own way. If that makes any sense at all.
It does, yeah.
So, and that, I got a nice little collection of Hot Wheels DeLoreans, too. And I do admire looking at those. Sorry if I kind of got you on a somber note there, but, I'm just realistic at this point.
Yeah, sorry. I am getting a little bit tired, and admittedly, the stream is running longer than I thought it would. So yeah, I'm just
about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But
as it were,
as far as anything else, I hit 50 in a little more than a year, so I know that I've got fewer days in front of me than behind me. It's just a simple fact of life.
It is what it is.
Exactly. Gotcha. So I'm just going to enjoy while I have, and when everything's over and done with, my stuff belongs in a museum. Damn it.
Roll my eyes. Well, you're not wrong. As for me, I'm still at a point in life where I feel like I don't have much to do but play video games, so at the least, I'd rather still be playing them than, having to go through all this quadratic sort of calculation on the best way to buy them. That's just on me at this point. I want to enjoy what I can with what little I have until things get better.
Exactly. So, play what you have. If you really insist on collecting everything you can, I guess more power to you. It's your life. It's just not a life for me. True?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's go ahead and wrap things up here then. Yeah, we're doing a much shorter stream tonight because, the last few have done a run for damn near 4 hours. And
yeah.
You probably expect the next one we do to run about the same length. We are going to be having an R-Type roundtable in the near future.
Yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm boning up on that series, but just by watching long plays, I'm not sure if I have the strength to actually play them nowadays. I'm a wuss nowadays, I know.
I need to play more of Leo.
So. Yeah. Leo's the forgotten son of the series, but it's definitely worth a look. Indeed, Snarv. Yeah. I do, at least.
So we're slowly taking down all the major shooter series and roundtables here. We've done Gradius, we'll be doing R-Type. Eventually, we'll be doing Darius and Thunder Force as well.
I suggested a compile at some point.
Oh, we have to do a compile stream. We
really do. Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. We don't get to talk about Star Soldier, Star Soldier, Super Star Soldier, and especially Soldier Blade. Then what's the point of doing these roundtables?
Except that Star Soldier is not by compile, but
still, That was about
I remember that Blazing Lasers was mistaken for being part of the Star Soldier series, and Melee does have some similarity to the games that was released in the TG16, but
it gets confusing after a while, to be honest.
yeah, I can see that.
I know Hudson did Star Soldier. It was just the first thing that came to my mind.
Hey, Snarb asked if he could be in the Thunder Force one when we get to that.
Well, we'll have to look into it. But okay. But compile wise, Alesta.
You better damn well believe it.
Yep. And yes, Ahan, we are drawing this to a close for tonight. This was actually a completely unplanned stream. So, and also Snarb has a good point. We could bring up Hyperduel and Blastwind. I mean, we're only dealing with like what, 6 Thunder Force games total?
Yeah, I think there were 6 official ones. So
7 if you count Thunder Force AC.
I think Elemental Master is incredibly underrated.
Yeah, that would be up there too. So maybe more like Technosoft shooters or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, expect next Saturday that we'll be doing the R-Type stream.
Okay, sweet.
And I give you an update on the books, but I don't have one yet.
No worries.
They're still coming. I swear. All right, all. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Yep. Down street in the flip-flop time pants.
Yep, and whatever the other one is that I can't remember right now.
Hanging up high the handle homie beef.
Thank you. Wouldn't that have been more suited for the transitional years stream, though?
Crap. No. Oh, well. You get them now. It is what it is.
Exactly. So, yeah. Flip-flop time pants, everybody.
Yep. Flip-flop to you all.
Yeah. Good night, all.